Tonight, we want to call to order the July 14th, 2020 special meeting for the South Euclid-Lyndhurst Board of Education, our work session for today. May we get a roll call, Mr. Hill?
Mr. Bloomberg,
Present.
Ms. Falkenberg,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Lee Harris,
Here.
Mr. Ryder.
Night.
Here.
Perfect. It is 6:04. Thank you for that roll call, Mr. Hill. And we can go right into item 2. Just for those of you that are streaming with us, this is our monthly work session of the month. I just want to let it be known that there is no opportunity for public comment. That is why there will be none addressed. We welcome you for joining us this evening, and we can proceed, Superintendent Reed.
Okay. With your permission, and Josh, if you can record this, I'd like to go a little bit out of order. I do want to introduce, as part of my, I want to introduce some new administrators to our district. And then after that, I know that the item 2.1, the return to school plan will be a longer discussion item. So I'd like to actually go to 3.1 before that, but I just want to make note of that as we proceed. So it's been an exciting time for us. And as everybody's things have been moving on and changing, we've had some administrative changes in the district. These folks were approved at the June 30th meeting, but that was a very busy meeting. So I invited them to come back and be able to meet the board. This is something we would do in person, and I don't want to shortchange these people. So the first person, Dawn Imler, was appointed the principal of Roland Elementary School last month, and I'd just like to say a little bit about. And Dawn, you can join us while I read a few things, and then you can say a few words. Dawn has been with us for the past year and a half at Greenview Middle School as an assistant unit principal, and she has previous experience as an administrator. She was in the Cleveland Municipal School District, at Petra Kennedy, I think it's elementary now, I remember it as a junior high, and James A. Garfield as an assistant principal. And then she became the principal from 2015 to 2018. She was the principal of James A. Garfield. Prior to that, she has teaching experience, which in the Cleveland Public Schools, and she also taught at Laurel School for Girls. Her bachelor's degree is she's a Golden Flash, Kent State University, and has her master's from Cleveland State and her superintendent's license she's currently working on at Cleveland State. So, Ms. Embler, we welcome you. And if you want to say a few words, I'll hand it over.
I would just like to say thank you to all of you. The decisions that you make and what you're doing for the students and their families. I don't take my appointment lightly. I have 2 daughters. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 3-year-old who keep me quite busy. But the expectation that I have from their education is this that I want for the children I interact with, and standards should not be any different. So please know that when I work with our families and our students, I want the very best for them. It's taken me almost 50 years. I'll be 50 in September to understand my purpose. And I know that my purpose is to help our students find their purpose. And that really is important to me. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. And I realize it's a very difficult time that we're all encountering. And so I'm ready for the next steps. So thank you.
Well, welcome. Thank you. Next is Lisa Quick. If I know that you are out of the state, and we'll hope that you have a good reception, but welcome, Lisa. And let me say a few words. Lisa also has a lot of teaching and administrative experience. Has her began her teaching career at Citizens Academy Elementary School in Cleveland. Was the assistant principal there as well from 2007 to 2019. Her last position was with the Lorraine City Schools, very intriguing, Dean of Scholars and Family Engagement. What was really exciting about Lisa when we interviewed her was really just that, her enthusiasm and her love of children, working with families. I don't know if I've heard somebody recently that says one of her responsibilities was to work in the lunchroom, and she actually enjoyed it. That's not something, and she really has a lot of passion for what she does. A lot of experience with coaching teachers in the classroom, team building. We have let's see, nonviolent crisis intervention, and she just had a wealth of training and just really came with a lot of nice energy. So we are really happy to see Lisa take on the role as assistant principal at Greenview Middle School. So Lisa, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited. I have had a chance to meet my team members, and we've gotten together, Sylvia, and we've already began to bond and already start building relationships. The most important thing to me is building relationships with the children first and foremost, their families, and the staff members. So I'm just really looking forward. I've heard wonderful, wonderful things about this district, and I'm so happy that I'm going to be a part of it. And I was super excited when I was offered the job. So thank you very much.
Well, welcome, Lisa. And I'm getting a lot of feedback. Sorry. We're going to let you enjoy your family time, and I'm really looking forward. And thank you for taking the time out of with your family to join us. And we're really looking forward to working with you in person as well. So I'll talk to you soon when you get back in town. Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. The last person is Sylvia Marshall. If you'd join us, please. She's absolutely no stranger to, I shouldn't say the last person. I actually have one more after that, but the last building level administrator. And Sylvia, let's see, I know you're here. There you are, Sylvia. I'm sorry, I got so many different titles. We don't want to shortchange Sylvia. We're all familiar with her, but she's really taking on a new position. I don't say role because Sylvia, we all know, is a leader through and through. She has been with the district as a teacher, and I believe maybe all at Adrian from 2006, mostly second grade, but I think you've done some looping recently, PTA, you name it, Max Scholars let's see, Max Scholars. She's been a PTA president. She's really involved with technology and has really done a lot of things. If you don't know, she has her bachelor's from Ursuline College, her master's of arts in reading from Notre Dame, her master's of arts in curriculum instruction for Virginia Tech at Blacksburg, and she has her administrative license. I know we talked about that, and we certainly are capitalizing on that. She's going to take on a new role as one of the assistant principals at Greenville Middle School. So Sylvia, we're so happy to have you as well, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be continuing my career at Greenview. I definitely have to say thank you to all of the Adrian PTA, the Adrian family, for all of your kind words at the last board meeting. It was just so humbling. You had me in tears. I also want to thank all the administrators. You've been so supportive in this transition for me. And I'm just really excited to get started, get working at Greenview in the next few weeks. I know the board and superintendent and CELTA have been putting together a plan to make sure we are all safe going back and starting the school year. So I'm just excited, and I just want to thank everybody. So thank you, and I'm ready to get started. Thanks,
Sylvia. We appreciate. Thank you for joining in. Like I said, they've already met, and things are getting rolling. Whether it's a little bit different this year, opening up. I'm really excited about that team in place there, as well as Ms. Imler over at Roland. So thank you. We do have one other person I'd like to introduce this evening. He is on the agenda as well, is Dr. Randy Cantanezza. If you would join us for a moment. A little bit of interesting story with Dr. Cantanezza. We met many years ago when I was in Garfield Heights and I was taking on the position of superintendent. There had to be somebody, my position opened up as the director of curriculum instruction, and Dr. Cantanezza applied for the job. We hit it off right away, and actually a short 2 years later, I left Garfield Heights to join you folks 8 years ago, and Randy was like, I came here to work for you in Garfield Heights. And I said, well, there's a place called SEL that I really want to be in. And, we have kept in contact here and there. A couple years ago, he joined us as a consultant. And this year with the restructuring and the departure of Dr. Motley for her first superintendency, there was an opportunity to bring his expertise on board. A little background, I don't know if you know, actually, sometimes they all come back home. Dr. Continenza is a Charles F. Brush High School graduate. So he is a graduate of our district there. I started out as an English teacher for 11 years at Willoughby Eastlake, assistant principal at Willoughby South for 3 years, principal at Chardon Middle School for 2 years. And then for 23 years, he was the assistant superintendent of Chardon Schools and the director of curriculum instruction in Garfield Heights for 8 years. And then the last 2 years, again, the curriculum instruction and assessment in SEL. Tonight, we are welcoming him, and I'm presenting to the board to work with Randy again, which I look forward to, and Dr. Continenza, a Brush graduate. Welcome, and if you want to say a few words, you have the mic.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, board members, and thank you for all that you do for our children. I really appreciate that. And I want to thank Dr. Reed for her faith in my work. And as she said, I am thrilled once again to be an ARC. It's, I guess once an ARC, always an ARC though, but working back in the district that I graduated from. I attended Greenview and Brush. We moved into the district when I was in junior high. I've had a wide range of educational experiences over the years. And I intend to use them to assist Dr. Reed and her team in providing the best education possible for our students during this challenging time and beyond that time. I've already been working, obviously, since I've been working in the district for the last 2 years, I already know all of the administrators, except the new ones, and glad to meet them this evening. But I've already been working this summer with Mr. Capel and Mr. Morton, and trying to put together a lot of this return to school discussion that Dr. Reed is going to be sharing this evening. So I look forward to continuing my work, and thank you once again.
Thank you. And I forgot to mention his bachelor's is from John Carroll, his master's from Cleveland State, and his doctorate from University of Akron. So all good local stuff as well. So thank you, Dr. Continenza, and I look forward to our work together. So thank you, folks. And those that I've asked to sign on, if you wish, you can stay for the meeting, or you can join your families this evening, Randy, Lisa, Sylvia, and Dawn. But at this time, I'm going to proceed with our board meeting, and thank you for the introductions. Board President Jones, if it's okay with you, before we get into the discussion, if we can go to item 3.1, which is an action item. For the folks listening, I do apologize. It's hard to manipulate all these different PowerPoints and different screens on one computer. So I'm going to read to you the item. It is available on the internet. And item 3.1 is recommending for the Board of Education to approve the following changes to administrative structure. Really, just retitling, you can see retitling the position, which is curriculum coordinator, to the deputy director of academics. That's more in line with what we do today. Curriculum coordinator is kind of an old thing because you think of curriculum. When you talk about the director of academics to deputy director, he's really going to assist Mr. Capel in academics, technology and innovation. And so really there's it's an updated job description. Nothing else has really changed, but really the title, and we've really updated the job description. So I just like to memorialize that so people know when we do change the, later this month when we change the administrative titles, because again, we have a new one. We don't have director of people services anymore. We have an assistant superintendent of student services. So I want to clean all that up, and this would be part of that cleanup. So it's just a retitling and an added, updated position, not position, but responsibility to the position that used to be called curriculum coordinator.
Understandable. So that is. Let me open this up. Can we get a motion to approve item 3. My computer's freezing. Hold on a second. What'd you say, Stephanie?
Oh, I didn't say anything. I think that was Mr. Hill that said something.
Yeah, I said it was item 3.1.
My computer's freezing. Okay. Can we get a motion to approve item 3.1?
So moved. This is Neil.
Neil,
Mrs. Ryan, second.
Mrs. Ryan, second. Any questions or comments?
Linda, for the sake of the audience, since we couldn't show the agenda, can you just reiterate that this is a federally funded position and that money for Dr. Continenza is not coming out of the general fund?
Right, that's correct. Yes, that would be correct. The Deputy Director of Academics, again, it's just a retitling, but it is also a cost savings because this is actually coming out of the federal funds, Title IIA. It is not coming out of general fund money. So that is not our teachers, our administrators, our classified staff, they come out of the general fund. This is an opportunity to have it out of our federal funds.
Okay. And just as I'm going through the agenda, I can see it. So 3.1, just to be clear, is the approval of the administrative structure and the retitling of the position. So that's the first motion.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right. And the reason I do that is sometimes school districts don't even do that, but I like to memorialize. So it's like all of a sudden, where did this, so what it does, there's a job description. There is a, somebody could find it, like when did that change from curriculum coordinator to that? So really it's a two-parter. So I want to memorialize that piece in 3.1. Then in 3.2, obviously the person we're going to appoint, or the one I'm recommending to appoint, is Dr. Continenza, and I'll go through that in detail as well for 3.2.
Okay. Any further questions on 3.1?
Yes, Catherine, I do. So if, as you are memorializing this, does that mean then that we will have federal funds in the future to cover this position?
This is, you'll see on my next recommendation, it is a year contract. And that's typically what we do with the federal funds to make sure that those funds are available. From the funds that we are taking it from have been traditionally very stable, to answer your question, Ms. Falkenberg. But you'll see that it is not a multi-year contract. It is a year to year for that, to make sure that those funds are there.
Right. Okay. I did see that, but I was just questioning about the memorializing. Thank you.
All right. May we get a roll call?
Mr. Bloomberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan,
Aye.
Ms. Falkenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Aye.
Ms. Lee Harris.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you.
Under 3.2, and I'll read this in detail again, I would have this up on the screen, but it is managing a number of screens. I did not want to lose the PowerPoint, which I think is would be important for this meeting. So under 3.2, now we're moving to the second section, is recommending to the Board of Education to approve Dr. Randolph Continenza in the position of Deputy Director of Academics. It is a contract for 120 days. There are transition days that are needed with the departure of Dr. Motley and working with Mr. Capel to keep things moving. As you can tell, this will be a very busy July. It already has. It is for a year, and we are using federal fund dollars for this position. And I'm sorry, the second item there for those listening, I'm asking for the approval of 5 additional transition work days for Mr. Capel. I believe in June we approved 10 days. As you can imagine, this has been an extremely busy time. Using Mr. Capel is off the month of July. Again, with Dr. Motley's departure, every day counts, and we really need to be able to continue to have him, Mr. Capel, working throughout the month of July. And those are the 2 items under 3.2.
Perfect. May we get a motion to approve item 3.2?
So moved. Falkenberg.
Second.
Catherine and Aaron. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, may we get a roll call, Mr. Hill?
Ms. Falkenberg,
Aye.
Ms. Lee Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Bloomberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan.
Aye.
Now if I move forward with 2.1, a discussion this evening with return to school discussion, I do have a PowerPoint that is certainly not all inclusive of all the work we're doing. But what I'd like to do is present the concepts of and actually the concepts of what we're looking at and considerations, as well as excuse me, right here, make sure I have this working, as well as what parents can expect this week at the end of the week with regards to documents that we really would like them to look at. So I'm going to move this today's discussion. And Cassandra, Ms. Jones, can you see that I changed the slide? I want to make sure I'm not just talking here. Can you see it says today's discussion will include state guidelines? Okay, so yes. I do have it presenting correctly. All right. We're going to look at the parent feedback, return to school plan considerations, and talk about the school calendar, something I discussed last month. So we all know that on, if you didn't know, on July 2nd, Governor DeWine released his guidelines. Actually, that was supposed to be released in June sometime. There were a couple delays and finally released on July 2nd. No disrespect meant, but it would really have been nice to have some of those guidelines a lot earlier because school districts are working diligently to get things done, and it would have really felt like we've lost like 5 to 6 weeks that we could have actually capitalized on, but it is what it is. Some of the things that were released with that was the reset and restart planning guidelines for Ohio schools and districts, and COVID health and prevention guidance from Ohio K-12 schools. I mentioned those 2 documents. They are available on the ODE website. However, they are going to become a part of our resources on our website. And I mentioned that because we do reference that a lot in our guidance handbook. So those will be 2 things that you like to read. Feel free and move. So in July, we actually sent out 2 surveys. I believe in June, we sent out 1 survey to parents that talked about or asked them with regards to how the last 2.5 months went with the last quarter of school with remote learning. And we learned some things from that. But this one we sent out right the day before the governor did his guidelines. I'm happy to say that we had 2,300 responses. And that was a really good response within a week to have that. And our questions were with regards to asking folks about their grade level, what school they attended, their learning preference, school-based or virtual, and I'll go into those definitions a little bit later, transportation needs, internet access, and childcare needs. So I'd like to show you a couple interesting results. So we first said, you can see there were 2,299, so we were just shy of 2,300 votes. And you can kind of see what the breakdown is with regards to most of it were from grades Greenview, Memorial, and Brush, which is obvious. And then you can see the percentage that we had. Of course, a survey is a survey. We're glad that there were 2,300, but it's going to be even more critical to know what specific families' wants and needs are. But we wanted to generally know who was answering our survey. I thought this one was extremely interesting. You're going to see from district to district, not all the pie is cut the same. Every district, school district looks like their needs. You see some school districts 70-30. You'll see some 60-40. Here, for those of you who can't read this slide, I'd like to read it to you. The red section, which says 58%, the families or the parents answered, I prefer my student to attend school daily, online, virtually at home. So that's 58%. So at 42% said, I prefer to my student to attend school daily in the building. So what that really told us was that parents were split, and they were really 2 schools of thought, where that some were prefer remotely and the other one wanted to come to school. And that really started to guide our discussion to say that, what this survey did tell us, even though it was anonymous, is that parents wanted a choice. They wanted to, not a one size fits all. I've gotten flooded with emails, very respectful emails from parents. Some are saying is that our comfort level is for them child to continue remote at home. Other families are saying is that it's detrimental if my child doesn't come back. People's family situations are different. Some are able to stay home with their children. Others have are essential workers or have to work, single families or both working. So there's so many different needs. So that was one of the things we said that, and some of the comments were is that, please don't make a decision based on one family and ignore ours. So you can understand that the task is astronomical. And at the same time, there's a lot of considerations that you'll see that we have to consider. So this was really, I think, telltale that folks want a choice. And so when you look at the second one, I think in a sense also told us how families were feeling. And I'll read this again. When you look at red, it says 70.5%. And that what that was is the response says, my student will be transported to and from school by a parent, guardian, or other provider, or will walk or drive. And the 29% said, my student received transportation during the 2019-20 school year and will continue to ride the school bus. If that holds up, that's an enormous relief. One of our biggest challenges you'll see, or any school district see, is the transportation. Transporting kids that are on a bus, even if it's one to a seat, that is, and you can see it looks like a lot of our families who received it would prefer to drive them. And I think that actually is a huge help as we plan. But again, we're going to need to know that because you'll see a little bit later, I will talk about transportation. There will have to be changes in transportation. We can't expect to have seat available that we jam as many kids on a bus as we can. That's not going to happen because we can't keep kids safe. So this was I thought this was a good response for us to work with. But again, we're going to ask parents to commit to certain things because it can't be fluid and we can't keep you safe if that's the expectation. So for those that can't read this, I thought this was another good slide. I think there was a question in June that from a parent, a public comment that wanted to know about the internet access for our students. And really, of those that answered, and I'm going to read from one that's a little bit bigger, we had 98.2% indicate that they had Wi-Fi through cable or other providers. So that was 2,258 of the 2,300 that responded. And then you had 36% cell phone, 15.4% used a cell phone as a hotspot. No internet access. There were 20 responses, less than 1%. And then must visit a family's home for the internet was 13 responses. So in one case, in this case, we felt this was an important thing to know because if you're going to offer a virtual school, online learning, you got to make sure that the homes have the capacity to do that. And that was one of the things that we wanted to know. Obviously, if those folks that don't have it are choosing online learning, that's something that we will work on an individual basis. But I just wanted to show you those three things as it started to guide our energies towards planning different types of options. On the bottom here, you can't see it, but it has 573 responses. We also know that childcare is a concern for a lot of our parents, not this in this district, but other districts, because if they go to work or they maybe have lost their childcare, I can tell you my own family, because they've have stricter guidelines. My daughter is still scrambling to find some childcare, and she's going through that process now. So we have contracted with established a partnership with a group called Right at School, who does things locally here and nationally. We're really excited to work with them, and they have a before and after school care program. We've been working with them to provide that as an option. And there was 573 responses, but when I went through the responses, some people just answered no, others answered maybe. So it wasn't like 573 said they needed it, but if you did need it, to contact Melissa Thompson and Student Services. So those were some of I thought the highlights that came out of the parent survey. So let me keep moving here. So when you start to plan, I think one of the things we have to make sure we keep in mind is the students are at the center of everything that we do. We have to take in consideration, and just repeating myself a little bit, the technology that's available. We put together our parents and the guardians and their family situations. I have not spoken about yet. You talk about your teachers and your staff and their well-being and their safety. the community in which you live in, and then of course, really partnering with our healthcare providers, which I'll have Ms. Thompson talk about a little bit later. That's important, you know, in the middle of what we're going through is that how do we make sure that we have all these partnerships to be able to devise a working plan. So one of the things that I really feel like I got to put that out there, and I've always liked to be transparent, is really these recommendations are tentative and can be influenced by a number of factors. So one of the things it's like I've said to someone before, you know, I'm a pretty decisive person. You know, I know make decisions and you really, I'm very thorough. But if you've noticed in the life we've lived in the last 5 months is that information is always changing. And maybe what we thought was a good idea a month ago may change with different information. So really, when you talk about changing health and safety guidelines, I don't have a crystal ball. No superintendent does. Updated guidance from state and county officials. We're in Cuyahoga County here. A decision might be made locally that's not made in Hamilton County or another county. Get here. You know, agreements with our labor union partners. I mean, we still, you know, we're working and partnering with, we have upcoming meetings. We've had a couple, and we still need to talk about some things. And resources available and feasibility of reopening up schools safely. So, you know, I say that there not to say that we want to change plans, but as you can see that, you know, if you read something, that's why we're calling it a working document. What we might know today might not hold up for 3 weeks. And I just want to be very honest and transparent. But our intent is to offer options, and I'm going to keep moving with that. So before we do that, we had some guiding principles as really, you know, caring for our students and the adults, not just the students, but the adults, prioritizing learning needs, student needs, effective teaching. And really what I'm talking about is when you really look at, say, K-3 education, students learn to read, and that's a very critical time. And so they've been gone for 5 months. You know, when they get back, you know, when we come back to on-site learning, or even if it's through the virtual school, when you look at a K-3 curriculum, there's 2 critical areas that really need to be looked at is ELA, which is your reading and your writing and your math. I mean, that first semester here, I mean, we really have to take an assessment of where those students are. So it's just not opening up the doors and we're going to do all the lesson plans like we used to. We have to accelerate learning, and we have to accelerate learning in certain areas. So that's what we talk about, working with our teachers by grade bands. You know, when you get to 5 and 6, you know, the discussion is around the core areas of not just ELA and math, but it's around science and social studies. And that's true. As the children get older, we may look at more things. So that's really talking about working with our teaching staff and prioritizing it. I also want to go talk about what they call the specials or the electives or the encore. We know those things are important too, the music, the phys ed, our STEM classes, the art, our library resources. The discussion I had with the music department, I think it was maybe in late May, was, you know, if we don't address, you know, I was talking to Ms. Barrick, is, you know, the orchestra, they usually recruit in 5th grade. If we do nothing, what will happen 3 years from now? What would our high school band look like if we don't make sure that we're doing things safely? We may not be able to do it like we always do, but to do nothing would really, I think, damage the future of opportunities for students in the district. So this is what I mean with regards to as we make decisions and operating efficiently, effectively, and responsibly. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So you have to excuse me for a moment. When you look at considerations, now mind you, there's just 3 areas here, but in the there will be on Friday, if I didn't say this, there's going to be I think it's around a 22-page document that will be sent electronically to our parents. It'll also be shared with staff that really looks at what we've drafted. And again, as I call it, a working draft, because today I added some stuff to it as I learned some new things. So those are the 3 areas that we look at. So let's get here. I think we need to go over the definitions of really what you hear: remote learning, virtual, and school-based, and all this stuff. And I don't typically do this, but I'd like to take a moment to read school-based learning and virtual learning. And I'll just put it out there based on the feedback of 58% and 42%. our parents want a choice. And there's two choices. I mean, school-based and virtually. What our parents didn't want to see, I know a lot of school districts are out there, and I'm not criticizing it because we're going to do what's right for SELs. They talk about a hybrid model. A lot of the feedback I was getting from parents and say, well, a Monday and Tuesday doesn't work. What am I going to do Wednesday and Thursday with my child? And then you have 4 children in the district. Well, we better make sure they all go to school at the same time. And that's then it becomes really consistency. I guess the word I'm using was they were looking at a consistent schedule. And, so we talk about these being school-based learning 5 days a week, but it really, I'll go a little bit later. I'm going to be honest, it's going to be an amended type day for safety reasons. So anyways, the school-based, the definition is, and this is defined in your document, parents, if you're listening. So I just want to explain it, where learning takes place in the school building and is supervised by appropriate educational staff, by the school teachers. They attend school on a daily basis as their assigned building. Students may participate in co-curricular activities if offered. But I think this is an important note. It is important to note all school-based learning students must be prepared to return to remote learning at any time due to COVID situations. I don't know what's going to happen for a month from now. We may get a situation that says, yeah, our intent was this, but we've gone purple, whatever it is, and there's different things, or that cause us to go back there, and that's important to know. For those parents who said, you know what, I think. And again, I'm talking for the first semester here. We're looking at the first semester, which ends in January, to see, what do we want school to look like for my child and my family. And again, that would be an ARC virtual academy. Online learning takes place with the use of a computer that allows the student to engage in a learning experience. The online learning may be a participation in a lot of different ways. There's content delivery software packages, there's internet-based services, and there's a learning management system. I think we've talked about Schoology. Schoology is one of those, Blackboard is one of those, and so you have your lessons and your interaction that way. And then, obviously, if parents, big question might be, well, if I choose this virtual learning and there's activities after school or whatever, or music and band and athletics do take place, are they allowed to participate? Absolutely. And so those are two of the really things that parents are saying. I want my child in school physically on site, and other ones that say, I still want an opportunity, and I have the means to support at home for virtual learning. So one more definition to people understand the plans is remote learning. Online learning is remote learning, but for the purpose of this, you got site-based, and then you have our virtual academy. And, the virtual academy folks would be saying, I'm going to commit to just be learning remotely for the first semester. Our school-based folks are saying, I want to be in the classroom 5 days a week, face-to-face with teachers. And then remote learning comes into play when remote learning occurs when the learner and the educator or source of information is separated by time and distance and cannot meet the traditional classroom setting. So folks, this is not a third learning option, but this will be the plan if the state or local regulations require school closure. So that's kind of like the fallback plan where, we got these two options going. As it says in this case, school-based learners would shift to remote learning. Those folks that are already in the virtual learning would continue that learning path as usual. So I'm gonna keep. I guess what I do is maybe look at this holistically, and we can kind of come back through. So, why give those definitions? Because again, families, on Friday when you get this, you're gonna get that packet of 22 different things, and you're gonna look at: do I want require site-based learning for my child, or I want to continue with the ARC Virtual Academy, which is remote learning? So that is going to be very critical for families to commit to something, because we can't move forward unless we know that, again, staffing wise, and we want to make sure it's 6 feet between desks, and we can't have more than X amount of desks 6 feet apart in certain classrooms. And so it's really important that we know where folks stand. So I think I just explained that to you here for the visual learners. Go ahead and read the green light. Again, the green light is your school-based learning. We got the green light to return to school. We got the green light from certain families to, say they want to come back to school. We've worked out with our teachers to make sure that because families, you also need to know that we have to make sure that we provide a safe working environment, not just for our teachers, but our custodians and our classified workers as well. So again, the yellow would be, this applies to the school-based learning only. Again, if something happens with the health provisions. I also want to mention this, thank you community for approving our levy to put air in our buildings. But I don't know if people know, when you pass a levy, like in March or November, you don't really collect that money until the following January. So there's not an opportunity to put the air in right now. If I look to see in September, we have some hot days like we did last year, and they get into the 90s. That's going to be one of those days that I'm going to call a yellow for short-based remote learning because we want to have good airflow in the buildings. Again, when you look at red, school-based learning would shift to red. It means, we go to remote because of something the government has put out or local agencies. And again, the top one is the long-term remote learning, which is really those students who have already chosen to stay the path of our virtual learning academy. And I know it's kind of repetitive, but I thought if I presented it a different way that people might be able to see and understand, what some of the things that we've looked at. Okay, so turn my pager. So in the one document that I referenced and will be a part of our resources, if you haven't read it, it is the COVID Health-19 Prevention Guides for how 12 schools. And they really talk about 5 areas here. I'm not going to go through, but I can tell you we've looked at, my team and I have looked at these 5 areas, and we wanted to know, that's fine how you're recommending those general statements, but what does that really look like in the SEL schools? I, as a parent, want to know in each one of these areas. I, as a staff member, want to know in each one of these areas, how are you addressing that? And so we actually have a 12-page document that we've worked internally that we have tasks for ourselves. We are meeting with some teacher leaders tomorrow. I'll meet with some classified staff in the near future, and really that 12 pages is kind of going over. And I'm going to give you a couple examples so you understand what I'm talking about here. So when they talk about diligently assessing for symptoms, the guidelines that came out says that they are highly recommending for parents to take their child's temperature at home. And if it's 100.2, and I don't know the exact, if I got that please keep your child at home. Obviously, in our guidelines, we're recommending that's a parent responsibility. But to be honest with you, I was a working mom of 3, and getting yourself ready, making sure lunch was packed or lunch money was there, and all the stuff that you have to do. And then an added thing of checking the temperatures every once in a while that might have gotten by me. What we're going to recommend, and again, this is all in the guidance thing, is that, every child who rides a bus will get their temperature taken before they get on the bus. And we're going to ask parents to remain at the bus stop. We need your help. We can't do that. When a child exits their parents' car, we're going to do a health check because, again, not saying that they didn't do it, but it could be one of those times where, hey, my child felt good a half hour ago, but doesn't feel good now. And if you look at a checks and balance and you try to insert safety nets, I think that's when you, nothing's foolproof, but I think we have to go beyond the minimum of really what's being required. So that's an example there. When you look at social distancing, we're going to put things 6 feet apart. I have talked to colleagues from around the state, and their comfort level is 3 feet apart. And I just feel like, again, we don't want to do the minimal. And so you're going to see in the learning plans that we're going to have a cohort of small classrooms. And what we mean by a cohort, families, is that, if you contain, for instance, I'll make it a 3rd grade classroom, and you can get 10 desks in there 6 feet apart. Really what the guidance is saying is that those 10 students should remain in a self-contained classroom. They eat their breakfast there, they eat their lunch in there. Anytime you share space, anytime you share equipment, anytime you share paintbrushes, anytime you share basketballs, I mean, those things have to be disinfected. You're going to spend more time with that. So what we feel is when they talk about, instead of students moving and sharing space, that if the teachers rotate, that you have less sharing of large spaces. And so again, that requires a lot of planning. It requires altering certain courses, offering them, but you can't expect to do it the same way. It also means, and I don't know about everybody, but I was a building principal of a K3 building in Garfield Heights State School that had 800 K3 students. When they did recess, I don't know how you can practice safe social distancing on recess. You might be able to put them all in a 6-foot square, but when you have large groups of students, that becomes impractical. And remember, folks, we're really looking at bringing students back, those that want to, for essential learning. It's not going to be as normal. For anybody who says we're going to bring things back near to normal, I think they're minimizing really what we're up against, and really making sure that we don't do business as usual, because it can't be. The last one, again, number 3, when we talk about sanitizing, we talk in our document that between bus routes, cleaning and wiping those areas. They recommend high-touched areas every 2 hours. So we do have a plan put together. We really believe we're going to put more time at the end of the day for our custodians to sanitize and clean the classrooms on a daily basis. That all takes time. It's exhausting. But those are things that I want the folks to know. So we took this document and we put together our own 12-page document to kind of address and make sure that we were covering things. Implement face covering policy. That is actually one out there that the guidelines say all students grades 3 through 12 should practice face covering. There's a little bit of a debate back and forth with K through 2. Some of the debate says because the children, and again, these are not Superintendent Reed's words, but saying that because children are smaller, that they don't emit as as much as an adult would. And so I'm not going to get into the debate of what the pediatricians and the health people are finding, but there has to be a face covering. When 6 feet of social distancing cannot be maintained, we owe it to each other. I can tell you that I very much abide by it. When I'm in my office, I can take my mask off. The minute I get up and I know I'm crossing over to someone's path, you bet I have my mask on. It talks about, I was an elementary teacher. You used to have kids come up in a kidney-shaped table we talk about, and so there's things that need to be, 6 feet apart, or, anytime it can't be because they have to be in a hallway, those things have to be worn. It's proven. So we will be looking at a face covering policy. That is an important piece. I don't know how we could ignore locally what they're telling us with the health professionals to consider. So again, being very transparent, those are things that we're looking at. We didn't make these things up. We're looking at how do we address those, and we don't want to ignore them as well. So just want to give you a little bit of so Ms. Thompson, I know you're listening, and one of the pieces that we talk about is the social emotional considerations. And I think everybody can kind of read the slide there about student supports, family supports, employee supports. And again, we go into much more detail, but maybe Ms. Thompson, if you talk a little bit about our family supports, really obviously your partnerships with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, and if you want to, we actually talk about that now, or health consideration, it doesn't matter. But Ms. Thompson, if I could turn it over to you for a few moments and maybe share some thoughts on this section.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity just to share a little bit of information regarding what we've been planning with our social emotional considerations. Essentially, since the school closure period for COVID, as you already know, we have outstanding partners that work together with us in our school community. And from that point until as recent as this week, I've heard from them. They have offered to provide support, recognizing that everything that happens to begin the school year will occur with support from our community and our partners. So things like offering to donate different products or supplies, being available to help students and families with navigating our online platforms, whatever homework help that might be needed. So our partners are definitely available and willing to provide that level of support. We also have, staff members that are hired in the district to support our students, family, and staff as well. And so during the closure period, we did check in with students on a regular basis through pupil services, our school counselors and social workers. But we also, of course, have, again, those school-based mental health partners that will be available to recognize that this has been a difficult closure period for everyone. And so we want to be available to immediately assess and provide necessary supports for our students, family, and staff. We have with our family and community engagement coordinator and Mrs. Bussey, a designated, dedicated person that will be able to help navigate, again, some of the remote learning curves that may occur for our students and families in getting access, recognizing that there might be some home situations that might require additional support. And then certainly with our employees, we certainly want to be available. I know that Shannon and Rachel, our two school social workers, made an effort to reach out to our staff during the closure period, just to, celebrate them, encourage them, because again, everyone in our school family is experiencing this reality of this pandemic together. And so we want to make sure that our staff even know that we're here for them, we care about them, and we're going to continue to get through this together and have a safe reopening to school. I will say specific to the health services, if I may,
Sure.
Dr. Reed and board, the assessing symptoms and working together with our provider in PSI. PSI is our contracted coordinated health services provider. They have been for many years. And throughout this period and recently, we have been in closer communication and contact, I would say, just to align our efforts. PSI has as their medical director a doctor from University Hospitals, Rainbow Babies and Children. And so everything that we are doing as it pertains to our health supports and things that are required is coming through that protocol, their process, their procedure, so fully vetted and in line with all of the recommended practices through our Board of Health, CDC, and the governing bodies that are important. So certainly I believe that we are prepared and we're continuing to prepare. So I think these areas are covered.
Thank you, Melissa.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
First, I want to thank Ms. Thompson and her department. Ever since Ms. Thompson dropped foot in this district, she has always attempted to go above and beyond for the needs of our students. And as I spend my week hopping from board meeting to board meeting virtually, one of my colleagues in another district made this statement, and I want to replicate it and tell it to Ms. Thompson's department first, and then our district as a whole second. What we're about to intake with this process of getting kids back to school and servicing these families is going to be large. Trying to be every student's liaison, bridge, link, be all for the families, be all for the students and the staff and the teachers. I think that's going to be larger than we've ever imagined. So I want to make sure we caution ourselves and your department, Ms. Thompson, because you like to spread yourself thin in the spirit of helping and camaraderie. We have to let our community know that this is a partnership. Like you said, it's a community partnership. We have faith-based institutions that help us, and we need to make sure we also are pushing out the resources for the families so that they can step out and get them. If there are things that we truly can't service to families or they're out of our realm, I don't want to get in the habit of creating that realm just because we know we can do it. So make sure we keep our own pulse and temperature on what we can really and realistically provide to families and kids. There's going to be some needs that with tears falling down our face, Ms. Thompson, we're not going to be able to service. And we have to be prepared to give it our all, but also know at what point we can't provide that service. And we might have to start depending on our other partnerships to provide those services. So I just want to put that on the table. As I heard it last night, the first name that dropped in my spirit was yours and your department, and then our district, because we do so much to service.
Thank you. Thank you for that support. Thank you. I truly appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we move on to a few other things, I actually want Mr. Capel to speak for a few moments. I didn't want to come on too early with regards to virtual, but I think this is a good stopping point before, before I go on to the next folks, because when I looked at internet accessibility and remember we talked about, there's school-based learning, which just means you're on site, you're on campus. And we talked about the other option, which is the ARC Virtual Learning Academy. I do want Mr. Capel to speak to a little bit what that can look like. Folks, the reason I'm not showing you tonight, here's what your class schedule is going to be if you do this. We need to respect and work with our teaching staff about, even if it's on-site school-based, what that a day will look like just during essential curriculum, and how we rotate folks in with regards to the specials, the encore, and even same with the remote, the virtual learning. There's a lot of different ways. I do want to say this, it will look different and have a different expectation from students, teachers, and families, different than the fourth quarter. Not that we did a bad job. That was just something to prepare for short term, but this is going to be more rigorous and have more rigor. And Mr. Capel, if you want to chat a little bit about the ARC Virtual Learning Academy.
Sure, thank you, Dr. Reed, and good evening, everybody. For the ARC Virtual Academy, what we did was, and I say we very lightly, David Capretta, who's assistant principal at Memorial Junior High, we hired him a couple years ago to be part of our team, and he actually ran North Ridgeville's online academy at the time. So put him on the task force along with Dr. Continenza and Ryan Morton. And for the ARC Digital Academy, we took a look at 5 different solutions: VLA, Lincoln Learning, Edgenuity, Apex, and Edmentum. And what we did was we took a 7-12 approach and a K-6 approach. And what we determined was for the 7-12, we're going to utilize a system called Apex, and it is a 7-12 online option. Offers dynamic lessons. Courses are presented through a variety of approaches to follow a consistent structure, which is critical for our students and our staff. That sequence assessment and assignments can be controlled by the teacher, which is huge. Our teachers have a ton of stuff already created, and that stuff will be able to be utilized throughout their program. It gives a personal experience, and it comes highly recommended, and it's highly utilized in our area. The task force reached out to different schools. Mr. Capretta was in touch with Mayfield, who utilizes Apex, and some other districts in the area. And it's what we're comfortable with, and we're very confident in that approach. The K-6 approach is going to be teacher created in SEL, and it's going to be focused on math, wonders, intervention support programs, strong focus on math and ELA, especially the reading and writing, especially in the K-3 area. When you get to the 4-6, again, it's going to be the math, ELA. We're also going to include Fusion, and all of these will be ran through our Schoology platform. One thing that we found in our parent surveys that Ms. Thompson sent out and put together for us, our parents really wanted a set schedule, set norms, more interactive. Not that we didn't do our due diligence and all of that the last quarter of school, but we also had 72 hours to put everything together. And so with that feedback we got from the parents, we put together set norms. I'm just going to go over a few of those. Won't take too much time here. But just a few examples. Again, this isn't in concrete, but these are just some examples. So students, they'll have to keep up with weekly pacing expectations, work with parents to follow daily routine and schedule. For instance, we have mock schedules provided for our families. We have K-3 mock schedules, how to prepare your day from 8 to 8:30. You'd have a class meeting at 8:30. 9 o'clock, this is an example, 9 o'clock, you would go into math. 9:45, we're calling like free play, rest time, get away from the screen. 10:15, small group meeting or flexible learning. 11:15 would be a math. 12 would be your lunch, and then you'd go into the afternoon. That would include an afternoon meeting, specials, and things like that. So what we really tried to incorporate was, again, more interaction, more face-to-face, and not only having, so you have a class setting, but also offering small group settings and offering office time for teachers where you might have that one-on-one type of platform. We also let parents know to be ready to commit to the role of learning coach in order to provide a high level of academic support. Anytime you're in an online setting, no matter your circumstances or anything, being a part of the online, especially in that K-6, and I speak to a circus house right now of a third grader, a first grader, and a 20-month-old. I get it, but the parents play a key role in that. And they have to understand that K-3 students are moving from developing to beginning readers. That's the biggest thing is that reading level. And parent guardians will be at times need to be very hands-on, but we're going to support them. We're going to teach them. We're going to show them how to do that along with our staff. Another thing was I wanted to make clear in this process is that it's not going to be a pass-fail type of grade. Our expectations aren't going to be any smaller than what they are if you're in the brick and mortar. Assignments will be turned in. Assignments will be graded. You will use the percentage platform with the A through F platform throughout. So again, that's the kind of the nuts and bolts. A quick couple minutes synopsis, but I just wanted to be clear that we really did dive hard into the feedback that we received from the parents, and that more virtual, online, face to face. I guess I say face to face, but you know what I mean, face to face, like we are right now, will be incorporated in those expectations, and offering more smaller group and different things like that. And very, very confident in the team that we've built for this. Mr. Capretta actually put together a presentation. He presented to us a couple of days ago, along with Dr. Continenza and Mr. Morton. And all of it is going to sync through our new Schoology platform. Mr. Morton sent that out to staff today. We've had a lot of staff already. Thank you very much for anybody that's listening. Reach out. We've provided resources. Miss Bussy and I were talking yesterday. Part of her role as family engagement, she offered up to be the parent liaison for Schoology, which will be a big piece, so that we're all on the same page. And if you guys have any questions concerning any of these things, like I said, just give me a call. And we're rocking and rolling here with the new ARC Virtual Learning Academy. It's something that I'm seeing not just for right now either. As a destination school community, I think moving forward, this is something that we need to have available and be able to offer for our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cable.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I don't know if I have a couple of questions. I don't know if this is a good time to ask them, or if I should wait until we're done with the whole presentation.
Let me go through the presentation. How about we do that? And and then we'll come back. I kind of figured it's kind of digesting everything and
right.
that piece. So I appreciate that. So when you look at your screen right now, I'm not going to go through everything because we talked about health services and custodian, and again, things are outlined. With food service, elementary buildings in the classroom. We also talk at the high school and junior high designated space and that. And so those are things that we're still working through, but you don't want to be having shared space. Transportation, I'm just going to put it out there. When we talk about health and safety, there's no way we could transport the amount of children that we have been doing and keep everybody safe. It's just not possible. I'm glad to see that our survey said that most parents prefer to drive their kids. That's great, and that will be helpful. We are not going to transport students who live less than 2 miles to school, and that is going to be a change. We do a mile and we do space available. We can't. We don't have enough buses. We don't have enough bus routes, and basically our 3 hours it would take to get everybody to school with the guidelines they want. So this is one of those things that Board President Jones talked about. There's some things that just aren't possible. We're going to try our best, but if it's not possible, we can't have it all in that piece. So that is, again, something that you'll see in the document. And, we even have it on the website if you're not sure whether you're 2 miles or not. But again, we're hoping that families help us out here and drive their child to school if they can. So when you look at this, everything that we've talked about is really, we need time. You're really talking about the governor coming out July 2nd. And it's not to say we weren't doing anything. And if you remember one of my letters, we've been having think tank since May, how to close the school year, how to get through one. And then we immediately start planning. But we started to hold stuff because, again, it's just we were planning for a lot of stuff we didn't know was going to change. And so this to do it right, to make sure that everybody's ready, we need time. We need time together. We've been putting in 10 hours days. That's not a complaint. It's just been nonstop over the weekends as well, because every day has mattered, and we need time. So what I'll be proposing the board in August, we'll probably need to have an early August board meeting. But I mentioned this before. The teacher start date was August 17th. I don't see that changing. The students were supposed to show up 3 days later. That's really not safe or practical. Met with my administrators and met with teacher leaders, and really had a plan that we need significant time to get things ready. For instance, we talk about a learning management platform, Schoology. Well, there needs to be training on that. If we're really asking folks to do it virtually, you want to be able to make sure that the teachers are trained. We help train the parents at this time, all that stuff. You talk about preparations, just everything I talked about. We're already looking at, the walkers, when sometimes parents of kindergartners, they're wait outside a door. Well, we can't have you wait outside the door like that. We're going to actually, I think of rolling and think of every 6 feet like you do in the grocery store. You have a painted line and they have to wait there until they move up. I mean, there's just every piece of signage. When we looked at classrooms, there might be things that we're not going to use anymore in the classroom. Might not be sharing that bookshelf anymore. So you move that out and you make more space to get between there. So that takes a lot to do. So we really want to have that training. And then students, I'm proposing, would come on the 31st. When I look at soft reopenings, and folks listening, you don't have to memorize this because it'll be in writing. When we say a soft reopening, and the 31st is a Monday, I think of this. The kindergarten parents should remember this. Just like all the kindergarten kids don't come at once because they're learning how to do school and everything. Well, I just need to tell you, we have been off for 5 months and been through a hard thing. You just don't come back and we change all these different routines. And like we have to learn, students and staff have to learn how to do things in the new normal. I'd rather, we're taking health checks. We're going to make sure that kids know that they're 6 feet apart and how bathroom breaks work. And those are things that you need to manage on a small level. I'd rather do it safely and get it right than open up the floodgates and everybody's back and act like it's normal. And I don't, if we do that, then we actually, as they talked about, certain businesses that didn't have certain things in place found themselves shut down again. And I think that's the thing we want to avoid. Certainly, if something happens on a bigger level that's out of my hands and it happens. But certainly, we want to make sure that we are easing our way in. So I also am going to recommend what we call soft openings, reopening, which is we would phase students in usually by alphabet, by family. That's not something you need to worry about right now. But again, it's explained, and I want to be very transparent that time is needed. So when you look at school-based learning, if you think, well, boy, I'm kind of repeating myself, I kind of purposely do this because a lot of times it's so much to take in. You want to circle back around because you have things that you're thinking about. We talk about 5 days a week, but I want to be very clear, and you'll see it in our document. We're really, when you talk about health and safety reasons, we are changing the working and learning conditions. Think about it. You're wearing a mask. I don't know about you folks, but I've been back to work and I wear a mask for a while. It gets to be much after a while. We're asking kids to be in self-contained cohorts. Those that have been used to kind of getting up after 50 minutes and go do phys ed or do recess. You're talking about very contained, by recommendation of the health department, contained areas. So when you look at eliminating recess and study halls like that, those are things that are not necessary. They are not essential. They're nice to have, and I would agree with that, but that's not something we can guarantee safety. When you look at essential curriculum, and I'm going to go back to K-3, if students can't read and there's a critical time in your brain development at an early age, that other stuff that doesn't matter. And that, so we talked about really eliminating things or shortening things. Small class sizes. I think I told you about pushing in classes. Well, you may not be able to do a 50-minute art class, but we certainly can expose kids to a 30-minute one where they can push into the classroom and have their own art boxes, go in and do music. And actually, if they do share instruments, well, there's going to be need time in between, not 5 minutes. But there's going to be needed time for that person to clean that. And we need folks that time. But for those families that say, so what kind of day are we proposing? I mean, it'll be in the document, but we do look to get them out, I will go back to the K-3 because I know the schedule, like arriving at 8:15 and having breakfast like they normally do, starting the instructional day, having morning meetings starting at 9 o'clock, having your ELA, having an encore in there and some type of schedule, but really by 2:15 dismissing them, because what that allows us to do is we want to keep people safe. We need time to disinfect, clean classes, bring, and have folks in there. If the longer you have people in there, the less time that you have to. So I'm going to keep using the word essential. We're going to be looking, this is a soft release. We're talking about the first semester. We'll reevaluate things, and if the more we handle things, the more people's comfort levels are, we'll be able to take on more. But for those folks that say, you know what, I work till 4 or whatever, again, we're trying to think of everybody. We've contracted with right at school. There's availability for affordable before and after school care. We've licensed more rooms than we normally would because, again, their parameters are 1 to 9 or 1 to 10 in the classroom. So, all of this is going to be there, but that's the piece when, you want to make your best informed decision. So the next steps are, what's next? You're going to get a copy. A copy will be sent to your families. We're shooting for Friday to have this. There is a declaration letter or form that will accompany the plan. And what that means is we're asking folks to commit. This can't be fluid in the sense of if we can only have X amount of kids in the class, we have to know how many we're planning for. If we know that there's a certain amount and we can easily get 10 in the classroom and nobody needs to have a second class, but what we find at certain grade levels have a lot more need, they want to come on site. Well, we may have to have Mrs. Reed's classroom might now need to be 2 classrooms where one cohort of those kids are in one classroom, while your other cohorts over here, they're learning something else from other teachers. And so we've thought of different plans, but it's very important that parents tell us what their needs are. Nobody is saying this is an easy decision. I hope that families are finding some comfort in the fact that there is an option. And we're trying to help you make the best informed decision that you can make for your family. So what's next is expect that to come on Friday. We're only going to give a week because, again, we got to keep this moving and planning. We have a lot of meetings to have with folks to even plan what that looks like. And so try not to overwhelm everybody tonight, but just give enough of a preview of what we have. And I guess I'll leave it right there. And I don't know if Catherine or anybody else, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, I'll do my best.
Okay, thanks. My first question was, what do we do about the kids who refuse to wear masks?
Well, I think that's why I'm going to be asking the board to look at a policy. Again, that is one way that we can look at that. I think, and again, we like to work with the families, and obviously we'll work with the families, but if that is an expectation and they're not practicing something that's health and safety, we do have the authority to think that maybe the virtual academy is more suited for that situation.
Got it. Okay. Secondly, and this is more just, I'm trying to wrap my brain around this, as we all are, I know, but, and I know you're meeting with teachers tomorrow, but are the teachers who are in the classroom also going to be doing the virtual teaching, or is that going to be 2 different?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to keep that discussion with the teachers, but yeah, okay. I think the discussion, well, first of all, a couple of things. We have to be mindful of that, Ms. Falkenberg, exactly. So that's why we want parents to commit, because we need to know how our staff is going to be utilized. They can't do everything. And right. So if I'm in site-based and that's where I'm at, then that's going to be my students. Obviously, if a child gets sick, just like always, and has to stay home for a little bit, that child's still responsible. But those students that are staying, choose the virtual learning, then we're going to have to work with the teacher leadership to say who's going to be teaching those classes. It depends on the grade level. So, we're not expecting them to do it all, but it's correct. We have to figure out. But I did want to mention too, like one of the other things that we've already purchased for our staff is the shields. Certainly, everybody seems to have their mask. I like a shield in a sense because if you wear it a long time, especially I was an elementary teacher, little kids need to be able to see and read my lips. Some might argue older kids need to see and read your lips too, but those are things like that. So yes, to answer your question, we are looking to have not them do it all, but to really focus on certain things.
Okay, thanks.
I do have a couple questions. One, asking for somebody. Where on the website does it tell you your mileage from your location. I do see the part where you say which school am I assigned to by my address, but where's the mileage? Do you know?
If I don't know it offhand, when you this form that's coming out on Friday, we have it's a Google map. Mike, you might be able to ask, but it's a Google map that you click here. Mike, I don't know. I saw you. Yeah. I can help.
Yeah, it is not on the website. There's nowhere that you can. It'll only tell you what school you go to. You just use Google Maps.
Oh, is that what it was? I apologize. That's my mistake.
Yeah, that's the link in that letter for Friday. It'll be on Google Maps that people would have to click on.
Yeah, and I know we have the link, Cassandra, there. I just misinterpreted. I thought maybe it was listed out, but there is a link that's in that document that they'll just have to click on.
Okay, some people are like on it right now. So
okay.
This is Neil.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. One question is related to how the district is going to handle a student or staff person who is in the brick and mortar that tests positive for COVID. That's my first question on how that's going to be handled, how that's going to be contained, how it's going to be communicated, because my guess is it's not a matter of if, but when it's going to occur.
So,
my other question, go ahead.
No, I didn't know if you want me to answer that one first or you wanted the second one. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with the first one.
So I'm gonna have Melissa join in on that. But what I want to tell folks is that what we've always done with regards to whether we've had meningitis, not necessarily in this district, but other districts and other things, we are never pretend to be the healthcare experts at all. That's why we establish our partnerships. And so with anything, we definitely would have our protocols and contact or how the County Board of Health. But Ms. Thompson has anything that you want to add to it. There's actually will be something that's in writing, the things that we will follow and stuff that we do.
As you have Melissa answer that too. Neil, I just want to ask one question. I don't know where I was reading, but it says something about having a quarantine room where a kid has to stay until their parent picks them up, or an adult has to go in a container.
Yes. It's separate from, and again, in that document I talked about addressing those 5 areas, and I see Melissa's on, I'll give it to her in a moment, is that really what we call that we, and our principal's been asked to do this already, that you have to designate a separate area, not the clinic that kids are used to go to. So to answer that, that's one, Mr. Bloomberg, that's one of the protocols, but Ms. Thompson, go ahead. I know you're the one that's been working in this area.
Yes, thank you. So I'll just share briefly that in our conversations with PSI, again, they have been speaking with the health officials here in Cuyahoga County and state, as well as the medical director at UH. And what they're doing is they're working together to determine how that should look for each school. What will happen is in a couple of weeks, when our building principals return, PSI is actually coming to the district and they're going to walk with me, with our building principals, each of our buildings, to be able to look at areas and try to identify and designate where those areas should be that make the most sense. Clearly, PSI, as our secured health services provider, they have a vested interest, of course, in us getting this right. So they want to make sure that they're doing this planning together with us. And so that is in play. We'll be doing some trainings. They'll be doing trainings with us to help in communicating those messages with our staff of what things should look like, how it's going to work. So I will say it is still under development, and it's under development because it's still under development with PSI and university hospitals.
Okay. My next question is related to the staff, teachers and other staff. If those that are in the brick and mortar environment, if they come down with COVID, is the sick time on them or is the sick time on the district?
They go under the Federal Family Cares Act for the pandemic. There's like a 4-level, if I'm not mistaken, Linda, where they have to go through clearances. Are you under isolation? Correct. Are you under doctor's care? Do you have a family member? And then they're under that threshold if you have an employee that just doesn't feel safe coming to work and they don't have any doctor's isolation orders or any of those factors, then they are able to exhaust vacation and sick time. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's what I know of it at this time.
Okay.
I see that you've been in contact with that as well, Ms. Jones, huh?
Man, I got a staff at the job.
Cassandra, I also did deal with that in my job. So we had explained that to folks as far as like how much time you get off that's covered by the CARES Act. And so, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Is that all right? Mr. Bloomberg, did we get your questions? I just want to make sure.
I have lots of questions that I'm going to just reserve for now.
All right. Well, again, this is a moving discussion, but again, I thought that the most important thing I wanted to put out there this evening is actually presenting things to parents. Know that we have a timeline meeting with staff, and as we go and we plan, and again, as we said, anything can change. Right now, we have to have the intent of doing our best and being comprehensive. And if something's out of our hands, it's out of our hands. And that, but I will. Ms. Jones, anything else?
I do want to say I had a conversation with a community member today, and Neil, I want to say her questions were kind of along the line as yours as well. The small, well, not small, but the small, so to speak, items of basic like day-to-day operations, what happens here, what happens there. And I took the liberty to kind of explain to her, like, tonight we will kind of be working through the framework, you know, the bigger bullet points. And then as they get into that building again, they'll start laying out those details. So I was explaining to the young lady today how I don't want you to get on the YouTube tonight and feel like we didn't answer the big pertinent questions of how are you going to deal with the pandemic, but we just want to at least bring out the framework to say how it's going to look, what we have going, and then as we go forward, it will break down. And one statement she had for me was, I don't have kids in the district, so I feel like I'm lost. And all I could say to her was, the documents will be available once they're done. And kind of her response was, why aren't they done now? And I was just kind of like, well, you got to look at, we are a small entity under a bigger umbrella. And unfortunately, the bigger umbrella didn't take the bigger lead in telling us what to do. They kind of just gave us a bag of bones, and we got to put the filler in here. So just know that it's so fluid that it's changing by the minute. And when those day-to-day operational things are set in stone, there will be access points for people to access them. And I kind of had to say that to her. So that was one thing I wanted to say tonight. Like, a lot of people came on board looking for those day-to-day operational things. Where's my kid going to sit? How many are going to be in my class? What happens if they cough? What happens if they don't do that? So I do want to say that if that particular resident is on the line as well to them.
And President Jones, if I can chime in on that a little bit. Again, being, you know, I was a classroom teacher, I was a principal, and there's so many different layers of routine. So right now we're talking at as you said, the framework, it's the big part. You know, then what happens is you take that and really, like, you know, Greenview, their layout's different, the age of the kids, and the building principals come up with something that becomes specific. And then you get it down to the classroom. Now this is what it looks like in this classroom. You know, this classroom has a different size, a different age. And so there is a lot more communications. When you're dealing with kindergartens, it's totally different than what you would put out to parents of maybe fourth graders. And obviously high schoolers are different. So the thing about it, it keeps getting drilled down and down and down of what those protocols. And that's why I think it's even more important when I talk about a soft opening. We're really learning new routines. Not just the kids, but the staff, the administration. I mean, they have to look at their buildings now, and we have a map, and we're mapping things out of when a sign goes somewhere, how we paint something on the concrete, walking through a PSI and say, well, this is not a classroom anymore. This is a containment room. I mean, so there's a lot more steps that's going on. I don't want people to think this is all there is, because now if we even talk about an instructional day from 8:15 to 2:15. Now the teachers. So what does that look like? Kindergartners are going to get X amount of minutes here, but third graders need 120 minutes of ELA. And so you take that day and you do. We also know we have to build in social emotional type things, which we have, but no, it's got to be built in. And so those are things that are not talked about here tonight, but still are in the works and planning. It'd be forever, and it's ongoing. I mean, you're talking about a lot of planning.
And then the last thing I do want to say, as we talk about this return to school plan, I'm gonna stay on track. I have not reached out to City Council and the mayor. I know Lyndhurst has reached out to us, Dr. Reed, and once we get ready to get closer to school start, we will pop back into their virtual meetings. But I know there's been some changes at South Euclid. And I just want to apologize now. Forgive me. I didn't issue a release indicating that, by the way, it's summer. We usually don't come in summer. So a constituent I spoke to today as well had a feeling about us not being there, and I had to relay to that person. And I'll just say it here, since we have multiple viewers here. We do our monthly reports at the respective city council meetings as a courtesy to the city officials, so they don't have to inundate themselves with sitting in our board meetings. So when we do come into their venue, we're giving them a brief recap or synopsis of maybe the last 30 or 60 days and events and exciting things that are happening in our buildings. So I just want them to know that we have not abandoned them. Granted, it is just July. We do take May, June, July, August, and sometimes September to spend with our families, because we do those city council visits on a volunteer basis. We are not compensated for it as board members, but we choose to leave our families on those 2 Monday nights. And majority of the time, it's the same board member during the month. So they're missing 2 times to attend those meetings. And with that being said, when this rollout is complete to the point where it's complete enough to roll out, we will have it accessible in our venue, on our website. But we just don't find it proper to utilize a city council format to roll out our contingency plan. So I just want people to know we're not there because we don't care, but there is a proper procedural manner that has to be respected when we roll out our information about our entity.
And if I can just piggyback on that a little bit, tonight was about presenting the framework. We are still continuing to work with a few folks, as Melissa talked about, with our healthcare providers and that. And I'm a firm believer is that I want to be as thorough as possible before I put something out. And we really feel that Friday is at the point. I know there's some other districts that have put it out already, but there's other districts that are waiting until next week. And so Friday is a date that we feel we have enough information. But I still want to say, even if we put information out 3 weeks from now, we might get new information. So that plan, things could be altered anyways. And I'm not saying that I don't have a crystal ball. So people have to also understand is that it could be very fluid. And that as well. But, we feel we got a few more things that we want to double check on. And I'd rather put out solid information than rushing something. And this has been pretty complicated.
Thank you. Well, I thank you for your presentation. I know it's not an easy task. Like I explained to you earlier this week, you guys are on the front line. You guys are the ones, when this stuff in the building goes bad, they're coming straight to administration and building first. They're hitting us second after they feel like they haven't been satisfied. Thus, the reason why this is a discussion item that is issued at a work session tonight, not an item that's at a board meeting that's being voted on and adopted. So I just wanted to be certain that everybody that is trying to keep tabs on the processes here are clear. So I do thank you all for your work. It's not easy. It's been some long days and nights for you guys more than us, but we've all had our long days and nights. And it's not easy deciding to send these kids back to school. And I say these kids, but they're my kid too. He's in the mix as well. And it's not an easy task. We won't get it perfectly right. Gee Willikers, the powers that be above can't get it perfectly right too, but we are trying to do the best we can. Because when I think about these 3,000 students, I think about them as if they're my own.
wouldn't approach it any other way, President Jones. Raised 3 children myself. I have 4 grandchildren. I have a school-age grandchild going into 1st grade. I have children that are educators. And it's important to do things as you would for your own family. Not very easy, but we are taking on the challenges as best we can, being thorough, rethinking things, and really listening from a lot of different viewpoints. So, and we'll continue to refine it as we learn new things. So thank you.
You're welcome. Is that your last slide?
That is the last slide. And I think I have no more items.
Okay. So do I have any other board members that have a question or a comment on that discussion item? We don't need a vote, but I know we've been battling these last couple of months.
I just want to just briefly add, just to thank everybody that's been involved. I too have been reading a lot of stuff that have been shared on social media and different news articles, and it's not an easy decision, and there's not really one right decision for anybody. And so, I myself have 2 kids that are going to be at the high school. One's a freshman, one's a junior. And, for my freshman, I go back and forth on a daily basis. Like, would he be better off being in the school because he doesn't know anybody? He doesn't know any of the teachers. He doesn't have relationships there with them. Would his education be better served there versus, at home? With my older daughter, she's going to be an Excel tech. So there's other considerations there as well. And, and then the next day I'm like, oh no, I can't, I'm not going to send them, and I'm going to send them. And so we recognize that this is not easy for anybody. We obviously want to balance, what's safe for staff members as well as students. And, I appreciate all the time that you're taking, Dr. Reed, before you send something out, because it's really easy to send out something like the governor sent to us, because I had to reopen my office for work. And it's like a 5 bullet point thing. Like, these are the things you have to do. What is that? To send to all your employees and be like, okay, just do these 5 things. And, we had to develop our own plan as to what was appropriate and how we were doing and what we were changing. And so, and that's for a small office that I work at. So having to do it on this, size is significantly different. And so I appreciate, I realize people are frustrated and they want answers now, but I appreciate the time you're taking so that you can answer more questions as opposed to just giving them the basics and then leaving people to wonder what is going on. So that's just all I had to offer.
I appreciate that. I'm glad my team's listening. We've been putting in a lot of time, so we appreciate that. We'll continue to put a lot of time and thought.
With that being said, that concludes all our items for this evening. I do believe we have a need to go into executive session as a board. So we will be going into executive session for matters of personnel, litigation, personal property, negotiations, security, or matters that are kept confidential by federal and state statutes. We won't be taking any action in there.
No.
Okay,
No.
We will not be taking any action. Just to read, since you don't have the agenda up, under Ohio law, the board may hold executive sessions to discuss those above mentioned matters. Executive sessions are used for discussion only. No board action can be voted on in executive session, and that is per Ohio Revised Code 121.22 for those of you who are joining us possibly for the first time. So may we get a motion to go into executive session and approve item 4.1?
So moved, Catherine.
Are we staying logged in, or are we
Yes,
logging out and logging back?
I need a second.
Stephanie. You stay logged in, except my directors can hang up. And
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
This
And
What
who
item is-
did the second? Because I didn't hear a second.
That was me.
Stephanie second. Thank you, Mr. Hill. It's 7:37.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me do this. I'm going to take the live off, right? Are we going into executive session? So I'm going to take it off. Okay. Hold on. Give me a second.
Cassandra, we're not going in for all items, right? Which I got to be able to say.
No, we're going in for